Mr. Pop.
You're now listening to
PWKGW. People who know good wrestling.
Hey guys, this is Ring of Honor World Television Champion Adam Cole, and you are listening to PWKGW, People Who Know Good Wrestling, on blogtalkradio.com.
All right, guys, we're back. Call in 347-308-8308. You know the number. You know the drill. Press number 1 if you'd like to talk to us. Ask Luke a question. Hit number 1. Other than that, well, the same as we do for every big star we have on here, the proper intro. And Mr. Luke Hawx, you are live with PWKGW. How you doing tonight, sir?
What's going on, fellas? What's going on?
Man, you have been one busy man. I know you've had the past 2 days. You have been busy. We'll get into that, the WWE. But first, I want to say that
like every young aspiring wrestler in the business. When was it, and I hate to ask Chris's question, but when was it, Luke, when you first realized at a young age that maybe, this is something that you would like to pursue as a full-time job, this is going to be, was this something that you dreamed about or something you just kind of stumbled into, or go ahead and take it from there?
I knew my whole life that there was never ever any other choice or any doubt, since I was a kid. From the earliest memories that I have, people ask all the time. So I was 3 years old, so I never wanted to do anything more. This was my whole life growing up. There was never a time where I thought I wasn't going to be a pro wrestler. I wouldn't take anything but yes for an answer. It was just I was going to do it no matter what. So you couldn't tell me anything else. You couldn't tell me I was going to be a 9-to-5 guy or this or that, or a fireman or in a band or any a football player. I didn't want to do anything else but be a pro wrestler.
Right. What was the wrestling that you followed at a young age? Put yourself wherever you grew up. I mean, was you a WWE guy, NWA?
Of course, obviously WWE. I only had access to WWE and then WCW back then. It was really tough in New Orleans. I mean, Louisiana was a good territory for NWA and Mid-South and all that back in the day. And as a kid, they had some local shows I used to go to here, and some stuff that branched off after the Mid-South days, but the way I grew up, I wasn't fortunate enough to see a lot of that stuff, and I grew up pretty much home to home, bouncing around. My mom was alcoholic, drug addict, all that good stuff, the pleasurable life that a kid should go through. So, I grew up on a lot of people's couches and stuff, so I didn't have a lot of opportunities that most people had to see things, so I only got to catch the WWE stuff that was on TV when I could, and I mean that was my life until I was able into my teenage years to catch on to other things that was happening, especially when ECW came on the scene. ECW just took over my brainwaves. There was nothing. It was like I wanted to be in ECW. There was nothing else I wanted to do more.
Right. Go ahead, Chris.
I was just going to ask who was it Vicious Vic Grimes who got you into, who actually trained you?
Yeah. I started off with a local Joe Blow jackass over here that basically just took my money and, didn't know what the hell he was doing. And it was all I had, though. I didn't have anything else around this area, so I went to them at first. And then as soon as I graduated, that was when I was in high school. And as soon as I graduated high school, I jumped in my car and, first I drove to Philly and had a little mishap there, and, the first 2 days I got up there, and then right after I left, I drove straight from Philly to Oakland, knocked on Vic's door, and asked him to train me because I had Vic's address. So I used to keep in touch with Vic from the ECW shows. There was some guys, when ECW used to come to town, I used to help put up the ring and sell the T-shirts and do all that stuff, so I knew a lot of the guys from that time.
Mm-hmm. And that certainly doesn't hurt at all. Anytime you can make acquaintances and things like that, and everyone, you hear that story a lot, setting up the ring and helping out anywhere you can, and it's actually.
Dude, I was carrying bags. I would have did everything I could. I would sit there and wait. Hey, you need help with your bags? Hey, you need this? You need that? You need me to get you some water? I would have did anything they asked me to do. Sell tickets, sell popcorn. I didn't care as long as I was involved with the show. I just wanted to be with the show.
Right, and that's very, lot of respect there, because it takes a real fan and somebody who's really, that's dedication right there. Any way you look at it. I mean, anybody who would do anything to get into the business. I want to get your opinion real quick before we go diving into some fan questions, some email questions, and some calls and stuff like that. Who was somebody that you automatically, were drawn to, and somebody that you kind of, maybe wanted to take certain things out of the things that they've done and kind of interpret that into, who Luke Hawx is now today?
I wouldn't say there was somebody, there was a lot of guys that inspired me, like Kurt Hennig and Rick Rude. Those were my first two guys that I really were like, God, these guys are just phenomenal. Of course, I was an Ultimate Warrior fan and a Hulk Hogan fan, and, I liked the show and the glamour. But, as far as the wrestling aspect, it was just definitely Hennig and Rude, man. I loved them. And then when like I said, when ECW came around, there was a lot of guys in that era that just, even from the Shane Douglases, who I can't stand now, who, and that's where it all started off with. Shane was, I looked up to him, and, when you work with somebody that you look up to and find out they're a douchebag, it just dampers everything you ever thought about the guy. But, Tommy Dreamer, I heavily influenced myself on Tommy Dreamer now, and I have for years. I respect so much he's done, from the backstage stuff to, running ECW to wrestling, just his whole intake on everything. But, guys like Perry Saturn, who I just wrestled, Stevie Richards, who I just got to work with, there's a ton of guys in the ECW era that I was just like, God, Taz, Van Dam, Sabu, Cronus, Spicoli. There were so many guys that it was like watching them and watching these guys in the ring go. I wanted to do the stuff like they do it. So that's, I guess. But at the same time, I wanted to be myself and make my own style. A lot of stuff Booker T, when you watch me, you see a lot of similarities between like a Booker T or Saturn or X-Pac, guys like that. That's what I would simulate myself to.
Right, three of my favorites right there for sure. And Luke, I want to say, when Chris and I had Stevie Richards, another formidable opponent, guy that you faced here over the past couple of months, we had Stevie. Of course, we had Shane on as well. Shane Douglas. We had him on first. Well, we had Shane on first. We had Stevie next, and then Shane after Stevie. But Stevie Richards had nothing but the utmost respect and the nicest things to say, about you and your upcomings, and that you have a really positive future road ahead for you. And like I said, we talked to Stevie, got pretty in depth, and we always just seemed to come back to the same thing. We kept coming back to Luke Hawx, and of course, there was more to the conversation there, but I think it speaks volumes of not just your work ethic. I think it's a testimony to the person that you are now, and have become the star you've become. As to, hence why we kept coming back and getting back on the same show. Obviously, we had a match that, we wanted to plug and promote, but ultimately, it all came around full circle, and, the topic of Luke Hawx continued to come up. So, in the situation that you're in now, and of course, I don't want to get too far into it because I want to, kind of lead up to that, up to this, extreme rising situation. If you go down through the roster there, and I know that, Extreme Rising, just come out this year, and obviously I know you have some admirations, a couple of guys on the Luke Hawx hit list, so to speak now, or you got a couple of guys on your radar, I guess it's safe to say. But, over the course of the next year or however long, the run lasts with Extreme Rising, because it's obvious, tomorrow you could be up in the WWE, you could be down in developmental, you could be on TNA, anywhere. You could be anywhere. Who knows what tomorrow may bring. But maybe before that happens, Who's somebody right now that you have your sights set on, or is that just a too blatantly obvious question?
Honestly, I just want to work with the guys who can go. I don't have a problem with guys. I mean, there's honestly guys, a lot of guys I have a problem with there. The Shanes, the Ravens, those guys, the douchebags basically. And then there's guys like Stevie who I don't have a problem with. He's a great worker. He's a really good guy. He works hard. He cares about what he does. But at the same time, I'm not going to let a guy like Stevie Richards get in my way. This is my time. That's my time to shine. So I just want to work with the best guys available, and to put on the best product that we can put on, and get rid of the trash balls. I don't want to hear. I'm tired of hearing these guys coming back and complain and not do anything. And they're making good money and they act like they're miserable to be there, but yet they don't. They want get good paydays, good shows, but they don't want to work hard for them. So I just want to get those guys out of the business and get guys like Homicide and Papa Don and the guys who really want to go and get in there and just have a good show. And right now, my main focus there is just this world title. That's all I can think about.
Well, let me ask you something real quick. And I ask everybody who's kind of involved in the Extreme Rising, how do you feel? And do you think the Extreme, I don't want to say Extreme title is dead, but do you think with Extreme Rising, do you think it's going to last? It's obviously not an ECW, but they're using points of ECW. Do you think, it can be brought back if done right?
Well, I don't think it needs to be brought back. I think it can have similarities, and I think it can, be very close to what it was. Yeah, comparable, but at the same time, it needs to be its own product. You don't need to make a product. They don't need another WWE. They don't need another TNA. They don't need another Ring of Honor. Everybody has to have their own selling point. And I think it has a lot to offer, and I think it would be, to try and totally recreate ECW would be the wrong thing to do. I mean, there's so many companies that tried to do it before that failed, so it's stupid to try and do it. But they definitely take advantages that ECW had and use those. There's no problems with that, and it definitely has a lot of potential at the same time because we have had really good shows. They draw really good crowds. It's just all a matter of keeping our ducks in a row and doing the right thing and not letting egos like Shane take control. I mean, Shane's got the biggest ego of them all, so he's honestly, I think the guy's dumb as a brick. So any involvement with him is the more the worse it is. The more involved he is, the worse off the company is.
Right, and I want to touch on that if we could. We've seen Shane come out with an announcement earlier on in the year. I believe it was after the first shows that he was going to be, stepping aside and taking himself out of an active in-ring role. And and we kind of seen, obviously, the last show, there was, the match between Matt Hardy and Shane, which, of course, we're dying to get into. We'll get into that in just a little while without going too far into it. Do you think that was a match that needed to happen? Is it something, or was it just, I know the fans, obviously,
here's the thing about Matt. Matt's a good worker, always has been, and Shane put himself in that spot because he thought Matt would make him look good. So, and Matt's a top guy, so he had to put himself in there with the top guy because he thinks, especially in a place like Pittsburgh, he thinks he's the selling point. He can't accept the fact that his days are dead and gone. So it's just I think it was retarded to do, and that's why I did what I did. And then Matt got hurt, and it's what it is. So what? He got hurt. It happens. It's wrestling. So if he wants to be mad at me for getting hurt, that's on him. If he's got a problem with me, he can take it up with me. And obviously he has online. He said stuff that night. Obviously he didn't say anything to me that night because he was out of it. And I was going by the time he actually got finished with the doctors and everything. But I wouldn't. If Matt's got that big of a problem with me, we'll be in the same locker room next month or in a couple of weeks, whenever it is. So, he can say whatever he has to say to my face. Because I'll damn sure say what I got to say to his face. So